Welcome to a special place called Unity Village. Over the past 100 years, this picturesque haven outside Kansas City, Missouri, has evolved from a weekend getaway to become the headquarters of a global spiritual movement. Unity was founded by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore in 1889. In the early decades, they led their prayer, publishing, and educational activities from offices on Tracy Avenue in downtown Kansas City. In 1919, the Fillmores bought 58 wooded acres, 16 miles from their downtown headquarters, to use as a rustic weekend and vacation retreat. Unity workers and their families camped in tents and shanties, but by the summer of 1921, a clubhouse was built for employees to gather and entertain friends. The master planner of Unity Village was Rickard Fillmore, the middle son of Charles and Myrtle. Traveling in England, he'd fallen in love with the cottages of the countryside and designed his early buildings with hand-cut wooden shingles to resemble thatched roofs. The house Rickard designed for himself in 1921 had massive wood beams in the great room and a large fireplace of native limestone taken from quarries on the grounds. Today, Fillmore Manor is a popular Airbnb. Other historic buildings have also been remodeled to provide accommodations at Unity Village. Construction in the 1920s was done mostly with horse and mule power. There was a full-service blacksmith shop on the grounds. These hand-forged ironworks were made by Unity craftsmen. 30 doors were hand-carved by master woodworker Ivan Lee using walnut trees on the property that succumbed to drought in the 1930s. The most ornate doors took up to 6 months to perfect. Early visitors escaped the summer heat at a swimming hole. In 1922, the Fillmores built a pool complete with limestone walls, footbridges, and dressing rooms. After being enjoyed for many decades, the pool eventually deteriorated beyond reasonable repair and had to be closed. Water was also needed for farming and other operations, and it wasn't long before workers started drilling wells on the property. They discovered oil and natural gas. At one time, there were more than 25 producing wells on the property. Not big gushers, but they did furnish enough oil to heat the downtown headquarters and treat the farm's dusty gravel road. The natural gas was enough to use for streetlights and cook stoves. These small wells were capped during World War II, like this one near the golf course. The first golf course was a 2-hole affair. Imagine playing it in 1921, moving from one hole to the other, back and forth. It could be the reason why 3 years later, the course was expanded to 9 holes. Rickard Fillmore built 2 small lakes. An unusual concrete buttress dam was completed in 1927 and was recently restored. Nearby is the water purification plant. From here, water is pumped to a large tank near the top of the Unity Tower, giving the village its water supply. Trails wind through the woods for miles, where you'll discover one of the only natural bridges in western Missouri. Pioneers traveling west described it in their journals. One writer said the sun streaming through the opening made it look like a stained glass window. There is a legend the bridge was a hideout for the outlaw Jesse James and his gang, which included brothers from the Younger family who owned a nearby farm. Unity Village has long been a sanctuary for native wildlife. As early as 1921, the Fillmores prohibited hunting. Today, the woods are home to hundreds of deer, families of fox, groundhogs, raccoons, and the occasional bobcat. Flocks of Canada geese raise their young here and remain year-round. Former Unity President Charles R. Fillmore, the grandson of Charles and Myrtle, was an ardent conservationist. He helped reestablish wild turkeys in western Missouri, and you might see a few in the woods. Over the years, the Fillmores added to the original 58 acres, and the property became known as Unity Farm. In 1953, the land holdings were incorporated as a municipality called Unity Village. The village holds elections for town council and mayor and maintains its own roads and utilities. It now covers 1,200 acres. For nearly 50 years, Unity Farm was famous for its orchards, cider, and other products like eggs and milk. At the height of its operations, Unity Farm had 5,000 apple trees producing 16 varieties of fruit. Workers pressed 14,000 gallons of cider each fall. The big barn on Colburn Road could store 7,000 bushels of apples over the winter. In the barn kitchen, workers made jams and jellies, apple butter, and syrup. Besides apples, the orchard had 400 other fruit trees, including peaches, cherries, plums, and persimmons. Beehives helped pollinate the trees. There were also blackberries and 12 acres of grapevine. The farm even had a flock of 40 goats, because the vegetarian Fillmores liked goat's milk. Outside the main gates, drivers on Highway 50 could stop and buy produce and honey. The farm also provided produce for Fillmore's vegetarian cafeteria downtown before they moved all operations to the village. As times changed, farming operations were phased out. Today, only the potting shed remains, which once connected two greenhouses. But Unity Produce is making a comeback. The apple barn on Colburn Road is once again selling fresh fruits and vegetables, thanks to The Gardens at Unity Village, a nonprofit group that began in 2009. They emphasize organic farming. Volunteers have planted heritage fruit trees in the original orchards and installed large garden beds. Each fall, they host an apple butter festival. In 1924 on the grounds, Rickard Fillmore designed a home for his parents Myrtle and Charles called The Arches. This was his mother's dream house that had no kitchen. Instead, the family walked across the road for meals prepared by Charles' mother, Georgiana. She served meals around a large harvest table filled with fruits and vegetables from Unity Farm. Her farmhouse is now the golf course clubhouse. The Fillmores' vision for the property grew as their outreach expanded. Based on Rickard's master plan, construction started on the central courtyard in the 1920s. Rickard's travels to Italy inspired the Mediterranean red tile roofs, stucco walls, arches, courtyards, breezeways, and fountains. The first two buildings on the central courtyard were the Tower and the Education Building. Both completed in 1929, today they are on the National Register of Historic Places. Rickard modeled the 165-foot Unity Tower after the bell towers he had admired in Italy. It does have chimes, but this tower also holds the 100,000-gallon tank that provides water for the village. The tower was fully restored, inside and out, in 2012 and 13. Its base is now circled by a sculpture garden representing the 12 divine powers that Unity teaches are born into every person. The Education Building has had many uses, from silent Unity to a seminary, and currently houses people support and customer care. On the first floor is Fillmore Chapel, the only chapel at the village where both Charles and Myrtle Fillmore lectured and prayed. The original artist, David Urens, took more than 2 years to complete these frescoes. Upstairs, the archives houses a fascinating collection of Unity publications and history and includes offices used by Myrtle and Charles. After World War II, Unity headquarters moved all operations from downtown to the farm property. Because of material and manpower shortages, Rickard devised new construction methods in the 1940s. His innovative techniques received attention from architects and engineers all over the country. The administration building, motel, and guest cottages were all built with concrete sections that were poured into large molds and then hoisted into place with cranes. By the 1940s, Unity was a major spiritual publisher. In those days, all Unity publications were printed and mailed from the publishing wing of the administration building. Through much of the 20th century, this was a state-of-the-art printing facility. Later, it made economic sense to use an outside printer, but publishing is still key to the Unity mission. Best known is Daily Word magazine, which has inspired millions of readers since 1924. Today, Daily Word is offered in English and Spanish, in print, or by email. The magazine is also translated into several other languages and distributed in more than 100 countries. Daily Word is still edited and designed at Unity Village. And so is Unity Magazine, the Fillmore's original publication. Unity is also famous for the Unity prayer ministry called Silent Unity. In 1890, the Fillmores began the Society of Silent Help, which soon became known as the Society of Silent Unity. In the early days, Myrtle prayed with and for others in her home and always placed a lamp in the front window. Today, the lighted cupola on top of the Silent Unity building symbolizes continuous prayer called the light that shines for you. Prayer associates respond to well over 1 million prayer requests each year, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, by letter, telephone, and online. And anyone may join the Silent Prayer Vigil online. Through the years, Unity Village added the Activity Center in 1975 with an auditorium seating more than 1,000 people. The Silent Unity building opened in 1989, and in 2009, a 24-hour fitness center on the lower level for employees and guests was added. When the award-winning hotel and conference center opened in 2007, it was the first LEED-certified green hotel in the Midwest, a symbol of Unity's ongoing commitment to the environment. Each building has been assigned a number to help people find their way on campus. The Central Courtyard boasts one of the most spectacular fountains in the Kansas City area, longer than a football field. The award-winning Rose Garden and Bridge of Faith are the settings for dozens of weddings each year. And work continues. Buildings are being refurbished and repurposed, and the grounds are more beautiful every year. As work is done, Unity is making the campus more accessible to people of all abilities, something that wasn't considered a century ago. The late Rosemary Fillmore Ray, granddaughter of Charles and Myrtle, once wrote, "The Fillmores envisioned a city of God here at Unity Village. Farmers, carpenters, stonemasons, and woodcarvers all gathered together to build a spiritual city. If you walk around Unity Village today, you feel the spirit of these people. And everywhere you see the beauty and wonder of Unity Village." Amidst this beauty and history, the spiritual work begun by the Fillmores more than a century ago evolves and continues to serve a new generation of spiritual seekers. Consider a visit to beautiful Unity Village. Learn more about Unity and the spiritual resources it offers at unity.org.